going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of Outside the Arena. I'm Griff joined by my co-host Rob Goldberger, and today we're back with another weekly episode, kind of doing the same deal as we have these past few weeks, talking about the MLB playoffs and then breaking it down in terms of the NFL season. NFL is already up to week 6, pretty crazy. The season it'll just fly by. You'll blink and it'll be, the playoffs already, which is pretty crazy. But we are going to start in the MLB. Another crazy week of playoffs. We saw some crazy things happen, but we are now in the championship series. Rob's just fixing his computer. But besides the point, you're good. You're good. We're in the championship series. It's Red Sox, Astros, and it is Dodgers versus the Braves. It's been very good so far. So, Rob, I'm going to start with you here. I mean, starting in the American League, both these teams, the Red Sox were able to defeat the Rays in 4 games. That was pretty impressive. And then the Houston Astros, it just seems like this team's kind of a dynasty at this point. 5 straight ALCS appearances. What are your thoughts on this matchup, how they got there, and, this series moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, 5 ALCSs in 5 years is just almost absurd. Obviously, the scandal, we know how it is. We know that they have an unfortunate past, but guys like Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa, it's almost sort of a Barry Bonds situation. Not obviously to that extent where we know how good they are. It's just, it sort of makes the cheating all the worse, if that makes sense. We know how good they are, and yet they did it anyway. But this team is just so deep from front to start. The lineup is insane. Kyle Tucker hitting in that 6 to 7 spot any night is just unbelievable. Any team in baseball would kill for that kind of depth. Kike Hernandez sort of seems to be carrying the Red Sox on his back. No one really showed up besides him. I don't really see the Red Sox defeating the Astros. I mean, I don't even know what to say about them. They're so good. It's just they're so deep, and just the names they're throwing out of the bullpen. Kendall Graveman has been just unbelievable since coming over from Seattle in that trade. They really don't have any weaknesses. I mean, Lance McCullers is going to miss the rest of the series. We'll see if the Red Sox can maybe take advantage of the lack of a little bit of starting pitching depth, but I don't know. I just don't see the Red Sox bullpen being able to keep up with this Astros lineup.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I mean, I think the Red Sox did a very good job. They advanced past the Rays, and I think the Rays was kind of something that I touched on last week, and just that lack of starting pitching. I just don't think can last in the playoffs. I don't think you can have literally 0 starters, true starters, and win a playoff series. I just don't think that formula or method works. And I think we saw that the Rays bullpen did not have a best series at all. In terms of the Astros, I mean, like you said, they're just such a good team. They beat up on the White Sox, who, pretty good baseball team. They've got some good pitching there and whatnot, good lineup. But the Houston Astros lineup is just probably one of the best, if not the best in baseball. Like you said, the whole cheating scandal aside, obviously, I think what is bad about that is just they made the wrong decision. That was just poor judgment. People and leaders in place just not making the smartest decisions. But they're a very good baseball team, and anyone who says differently is ridiculous. And I think people are starting to move past the cheating scandal almost in a way. Obviously, the teams affected mainly are going to still carry that on. But the fact is, this team is still very good. They probably could have won the World Series even without cheating. So I think people are starting to realize that and kind of move past the cheating thing. It's been a few years now. They've let out their anger. I mean, there'll always be people who stick with that. But at this point, I've moved past it. I don't really care anymore. This is a good baseball team, and they've made the ALCS back-to-back years. So you can't really talk trash about them since. And like you said, I mean, this is going to be a tough team to defeat. The playoff experience is just out of this world as well. All these guys have played so many playoff games, and they're also clutch. You see Altuve and Correa both hitting big home runs last night. Those guys do that nightly in the playoffs. I mean, it's pretty insane the amount of clutch home runs those guys have. And they lost their most clutch player in the playoffs in George Springer, arguably, and they're still such a good and talented lineup. So Houston, it's going to be fun to see what that series happens. I agree with you. I had the Astros. I believe I said the Astros would make the World Series last week, and I stick by that prediction. So.
Said that.
So I'm sticking with that. Houston looks good right now.
My World Series prediction was already proven massively wrong within 3 days of being made.
Yeah, that is true. But moving on to the other series, unless you want to say something about the
Oh
ALCS.
no, I was actually going to transition to the NL.
All right, so you take us to the NLCS.
There was some questionable umpiring in that Game 5 between the Giants and the Dodgers. The Chris Bryant 5-ball strikeout. That obviously Wilmer Flores check swing at the end. It's not a good way to end the series. But those two teams, I think the Giants, they really have nothing to be ashamed of. This was an unbelievable season for them. It's a brutal way to go out, but to challenge the team with a $300 million payroll when you have a team that wasn't really even expected to challenge for the playoffs, if I'm correct. I mean, maybe a wild card spot or something, but this is a team that came out of nowhere and they really took the Dodgers down to the very end. I mean, I think this is a team with a bright future. I mean, obviously it's going to be very contingent on some of these guys keeping up this production that they really haven't had for the outside this season for their careers. I think they'll be able to do it. I think Gabe Kapler, he'll win NL Manager of the Year in a landslide. I think they're building something special over there. They really have nothing to be ashamed of, but it just shows you how scary the Dodgers are. Because even when they look down and out in a game, after Game 3, thought, well, maybe the Giants really do have this one. That 1-0 seemed a little bit demoralizing for the Dodgers. They just come back, and then they can just bring Scherzer out of the bullpen whenever they want. It's almost just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Like you said, the Dodgers just such a talented team, and like you said, for the Giants, nothing to be ashamed of. Obviously, we'll see what happens this offseason. Kevin Gausman's a pending free agent. Chris Bryant now a pending free agent. So there's a chance they lose some of those quality guys. And can guys like Brendan Crawford, Brendan Bell, Buster Posey keep up that production from this year? It remains to be seen. I think they'll still be a very good ball club next year, but I think this was probably a peak year in terms of, I mean, look at all the guys and having their career years. But that said, Logan Webb, that guy is a superstar in the making. He is one of the best young pitchers in baseball through 2 great games of the series. And it's a tough way to go out, like you said, bad umpiring. But at the end of the day, you scored 1 run. So at the end of the day, your offense has to step up and score more than that. You can't rely on the umpires to save you on a check swing. It is an unfortunate truth of the situation. But the Dodgers, like you said, I mean, it's such a good ball club. They are so deep. Cody Bellinger, big hit. I mean, he has been terrible all year, but he's put up some big hits when he's gotten them this playoff. So good for him. On the flip side, the Atlanta Braves, I mean, that was a very shocking series win, in my opinion. I thought they had no chance against the Milwaukee Brewers, but the Atlanta Braves, I mean, back-to-back NLCS appearances now. This is a team that, even without Ronald Acuna, Mike Soroka, has managed to find a ways to win, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, it shows anything can happen in the playoffs. Braves lineup's pretty good. I mean, Freddie Freeman, he's one of the best players in baseball, unquestioned. And they've got good depth in that lineup. They've got guys like Eddie Rosario, Jorge Soler, Adam Duvall, Austin Riley's a superstar in the making. Ozzy Albies is great. They've just got all these pieces. The pitching held up pretty well. And, for the Brewers, I think that problem was always going to be the batting in the lineup. I think you knew the pitching was going to kind of be able to hold the Braves. And, the Braves didn't really score too many runs in this series. I mean, they scored 3-5 runs. So it was definitely in reach. It's just the Brewers lineup has just slumped. And, it's definitely the weak part of that team, the reason that this team was unable to advance past the NLDS.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people said it. I didn't agree with it at the time, but a lot of people said, to their credit, that the Brewers lineup they were so big of a weakness that despite having 3 legitimate, I mean, even aces this year, it wouldn't even matter. And of course, pitching is important, but you can't win with that bad of a lineup. You just can't. I mean, their pitching was that of a 105-win World Series winner, and their hitting really was below league average. It was a below league average lineup, and it got exposed in the playoffs. And a lot of people said what happened. I wasn't sure they would lose to Atlanta, but they did, because, I mean, what did they? There was a point where they scored 1 run in 3 games or something like that, or 2 runs in 3 games, or something along those lines. The lineup's it's just not good enough. They really got to do some more to improve, because they can't let that pitching staff go to waste.
Yeah. I mean, they scored 2 runs, like you said, in the first 3 games. That's insane. That's just embarrassing. And the Braves, they have decent pitching, but it's nothing incredible. I mean, they don't have superstars at that lineup. I mean, they've got good young guys, Max Fried, Ian Anderson, to name a few, but it's nothing that you can't hit in the major leagues and in the playoffs. I mean, moving ahead to, looking at the Dodgers-Braves series, I'm going to take the Dodgers. I mean, I just don't think the Braves are built enough to beat the Dodgers. The Dodgers are just such a good baseball team, and they just beat a very good Giants team. So I would be very surprised to see the Braves win. But I mean, the Braves, this team has the ability to get hot. And if their pitching can hold the Dodgers down, which, I mean, this ain't the Brewers lineup, but if they can pull that off, we'll see what happens. We'll see if Max Muncy's able to return sometime in this playoff run. I don't know if he will, but it's very interesting. And yeah, I'm going to go Dodgers. I think they'll win in like 5 or 6 games probably.
Yeah, I'll go with the Dodgers in 5 games. I would be maybe more inclined to pick an Atlanta upset if Acuna and Soroka were healthy, but they're not. I just don't really think they're even in the same stratosphere in the Dodgers competitively. So I'll take Dodgers in 5. Yeah, on that.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so that will do it for the MLB. We'll be sure to keep talking about that as the World Series nears and whatnot. But we are going to talk about the NFL. Week 5 was definitely a very busy one. So we're going to touch on a few of these games. Arguably, there was potential game of the year candidates in this. Is this? Yes, week 5. Here we go. So not much going on in these top 3 games. Eagles were able to beat the Panthers. Credit to you. You predicted that. You kind of called the Panthers bluff. So good for you. Not much going on here. Packers, Bengals. I mean, what was going on there? What were your thoughts on that game real quick? I mean, the missed field goals and whatnot, the chaos that ensued. Packers just squeaked it out.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in my entire life. When I got the first notification that he missed 2 in a row, I switched over to Red Zone to watch the game. It's the 3rd one, and I've never 5 straight missed field goals total. I've never seen anything like that. But I don't know. Maybe the Cincinnati Bengals are better than I've been giving them credit for. They really hung with the Packers, and they really had a shot to win this game, and they should have. But Aaron Rodgers getting it done on the road in clutch time again. Same old story. I don't think this Packers team is good enough to compete with the cream of the crop in the NFC. I think they're probably a tier below that, but I don't really see them challenging the likes of the Buccaneers or the Rams or the Cardinals, quite frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Bengals are a solid team, but the Green Bay Packers, like you said, I mean, this is a good team, but they are just probably not on that same tier as some of those other teams. Very good ball club, but I'm not so sure they'll compete. And like you said, Cincinnati Bengals, they've impressed so far. Jamar Chase, that kid looks insane. He has played so well so far. They've got a really good offense. They've got a lot of good pieces there. So future is bright in Cincinnati. I think that defense could use a little improvement, but we'll see what happens with that. Oh my God, we're doing this thing again. All right. Well, I'll click on them for these games, but Browns Chargers, we got to talk about it, and we'll talk about this and then maybe the 2 primetime games. What a game this was. I mean, this Chargers offense is just ridiculous. Justin Herbert, this kid is a straight out superstar. He is, I mean, you were saying he's going to be top 5. He looks like he might already be top 5. He is just unreal. And for the Cleveland Browns, Nick Chubb is going to be out this week, so he's a little banged up, but they really are so elite at running the football, by far the best running team in the NFL. And Baker Mayfield, I mean, he's kind of had an season, pretty good game. What are your thoughts on the Cleveland Browns and the Chargers game right here? Odell Beckham, only 2 catches as well. That was pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, the main difference in this game is Justin Herbert. The guy is just insane. 5 or 6 total touchdowns did he have? 5 total touchdowns he had.
Total, yeah.
When he got the ball back, 42-41, I don't really think anybody had any doubts sort of that he was going to go down and punch the ball. The one thing that didn't really make sense to me was the Cleveland Browns end of game play calling. They seemed to like just keep taking shots deep, and then they ran the ball on 3rd and 10 beforehand when they got the ball back. I don't know. I'm not really sure. You see it with teams all over the league. You can't beat elite quarterbacks and elite offenses by being conservative. You have to try to win the games, and then going deep every single play when they got the ball back. I'm not really sure. When they were moving the ball efficiently, I'm not really sure why they didn't just run their regular offense. I mean, they had like a minute 40 and 3 timeouts. But yeah, the main story of this game is Justin Herbert, and I think Brendan Staley has done an excellent job since coming to Los Angeles. I mean, I think this is one of the most pronounced coaching. You can see how different this team is playing under a different coach. They're really playing for him. His game management is so much better. Him going for it on 4th down and it paying off, something Anthony Lynn would never do, and it cost them games last year, obviously, his game management. But yeah, elite young head coach, elite young quarterback. Potentially, I think he might even be the 2nd or 3rd best quarterback in the league right now. I mean, there's some excellent quarterbacking going on right now, and he's just at the top of the list.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, what a good game. Like you said, Justin Herbert, just on another level. And this Chargers team, I think they're going to run away with the AFC West at this point. I mean, this is such a good ball club. We're going to talk about the Chiefs in a second, but that Chiefs team, there is major, major issue and worry for concern. On the flip side, though, the Cleveland Browns, I mean, this has been a team that just, in their two losses, they just can't close games right now. They had trouble closing against both the Chargers and the Chiefs. They've been up going into the fourth, and they just haven't been able to get it done. And that's something that we saw last year, even. We saw that in the playoff game against the Steelers. They let the Steelers get a little too close
Yeah,
at the end.
yeah,
And
they did.
the Cleveland Browns, I mean, this is just a team that I don't know if they're getting comfortable or it's just bad play call, but it is something they absolutely need to figure out. And with the playmakers they have on that offense, it shouldn't be a problem to be able to close out games and run the clock down, especially with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I mean, I don't see why you're just running the ball 3-4 times there. You're almost guaranteed to get a first down, I'd say. I mean, those guys are so talented, especially with that O-line. So I don't know what the Cleveland Browns are doing. They just need to work on closing games. I'm not worried about the defense. I mean, this is just a shootout kind of game. Both of these defenses are better than, giving up 40 plus points.
Yeah,
I still believe these two teams are in the top tier of teams in the AFC. I think these two teams, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, those are probably the top four teams right now in my mind in the AFC. But I mean, very good game from these teams. Cleveland Browns, just got to work on closing. They played good, and then fourth quarter it didn't look so good. All right, Bills Chiefs. We got to talk about this. Josh Allen and the Bills absolutely stormed and demolished the Kansas City Chiefs. It wasn't a close game. Pat Mahomes, I mean, they've turned the ball over a lot. The running attack just hasn't been there. Offense was all right, but the Bills, I mean, this is just a very good offensive team. They're starting to run the ball a little more. They've had Zach Moss, Devin Singletary. They played pretty well this year, and just so many options in that receiving game. Dawson Knox has emerged as a good young tight end. You've got Stephon Diggs, obviously, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, Gabe Davis. And the defense is very good as well. I think Buffalo has established themselves. I was wrong on Buffalo. I thought Buffalo was going to be that third team in the AFC. I thought the Chiefs and the Browns were the two best teams. I think the Buffalo Bills right now are unquestionably, maybe the Chargers, but to me, think the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC right now.
yeah. I agree with that. I mean, that Kansas City defense might be the worst defense I've ever watched at an NFL level. I mean, it's terrible. I don't know whether it's coaching because they lost a couple guys from last year, but their defense is around league average last year, and this year it's just completely collapsed. I mean, and it's hard. We can talk about the Chiefs' offense all we want, but we all know that this is not the root of this team's problems, and it's hard for an offense to always keep playing catch up when your defense is that bad. I mean, that defense made Jalen Hurts look like Joe Montana when they played. This defense is just atrocious. You can't win with a defense like this. I'm never going to count them out just because they have Patrick Mahomes and he can turn it on at any given time. And their schedule, I don't really agree with these takes that they're going to miss the playoffs or they'll be league average because their schedule really does ease up. I mean, they've had the hardest schedule in the league so far. They played the likes of the Ravens, the Browns, the Chargers already. And now the Bills argue, like you just said, the four best teams in the AFC, which I agree with you on. They'll make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the AFC just because there's so many good quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, all probably top 5 quarterbacks right now, all MVP candidates. I mean, you can't – I can't say how much enough. You cannot win with a defense like that. And I've said it – I think I've said it on this podcast before. The Chiefs sorely miss a number 2 receiving option. McCole Hardman is simply not good enough. And Kelsey and Hill, there's too much pressure being put on them, especially considering that lack of a running game. It's not good for concern as the defense. You're never going to win a stack of a conference as the AFC, with one side of the ball playing like that. I still think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they'll win anything this year, though. And like you can see, Patrick Mahomes is sort of trying to overcompensate because they're falling behind. They have to throw the ball so much. He threw the ball 54 times. Just not good for the Chiefs.
Yeah, Chiefs in a very big hole right now. I mean, this defense is just, like you said, atrocious, and I feel like you covered it really well. It's just not playing good, and this team will not – I think they'll be a playoff team. With Pat Mahomes, you just can't see this team missing the playoffs. But defensively, I mean, if things don't change or take a sharp turn, I mean, this defense – we've seen they just have to be about league average for this team to be, a Super Bowl contender. But the way it is right now, I mean, if this is a bottom half defense, I just can't see Kansas City winning anything. And the offense itself, as good as it is, they've underperformed a bit as well. We can say great things about this offense all day, but they've not played up to the standards that we've seen in the past. I mean, Pat Mahomes has turned the ball over a lot more than he has in the past. Obviously, he's having to throw a lot more being down, but we've seen little few more mistakes this year from Pat Mahomes. So, as talented as this offense is, not a good spot for the Kansas City Chiefs. And last game before yeah, go ahead.
I will say one thing. When it comes to wild card weekend, I'm not sure too many teams are going to want Patrick Mahomes rolling into town. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
So they'll be tough. We know how the NFL playoffs are. Quarterbacking often reigns supreme. I'm not going to declare their season dead 5 games in because we know the NFL playoffs are. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And moving on, lastly, I mean, this was a great game. The Baltimore Ravens, what resilience they showed. Carson Wentz honestly played pretty good in this game. This game didn't fall on him. Carson Wentz has looked honestly decent so far as a Colt. I will say Jonathan Taylor had a pretty good game, but Lamar Jackson, I mean, what a performance. This is just his greatest performance in the NFL. This guy, unreal. Mark Andrews had a superstar game. I mean, real quick, I don't think we need to touch really on the Colts, but just the Baltimore Ravens. This team has overcome so many injuries, and they're proving they're still a top 4 team in this AFC.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar is just he's unbelievable. He's just unreal. He's so good. He's taken his game to a whole new level. I mean, to be fair, I mean, that's an all-time choke job from the Colts. 16 points up, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But I got to give Lamar his credit. He was unbelievable. 500 total yards of offense. Those are that's stuff you see in college, not in the NFL. But we said before the Colts defense is really, really questionable. They're not going to win. Like I said about the Chiefs, they're not going to win anything with that defense. And the Colts had Carson Wentz, not Patrick Mahomes. But like I said, the story of this game is Lamar Jackson. I mean, if the season ended today, you can make a very good case for him being the MVP of the National Football League, along with guys like Herbert and others. But Lamar has just elevated his game to a whole new level, and he looked unbelievable not only as a runner, but he looked like an all-pro passer on Monday night, and he really led them back through the air. He was picking apart the defense, and people keep saying Lamar is going to be figured out, but that day just does not seem like it's going to arrive ever.
Yeah, it really has. It really does not seem like it's going to arrive. I mean, Hollywood Brown also has taken his game to a new level. That has been so huge. He not a number 1 receiver, but he has become very good for that offense, and that's what they need. Mark Andrews is such a talent as well. I mean, this team has done a great job with what they've been given. I don't really have too much more to say other than that. The Colts, I mean, they just, in my opinion, the passing offense is good, but Jonathan Taylor needs to run the ball. Obviously, it's a tough Ravens defense, but Jonathan Taylor needs to be more involved. I mean, 15 carries, you need to run the ball 20 times with that kind of rusher. He is such a talent. We saw that on that receiving touchdown. They just don't use him enough. I mean, it's like frustrating to watch. They really need to get Jonathan Taylor a little more involved. But like you said, Michael Pittman looks great. I mean, Paris Campbell, these are, options. T.Y. Hilton is set to return, so we'll see what happens. But Indianapolis Colts 1-4, not a good spot. That's for sure.
Listen, that's all I want from them. If Wentz plays well and they keep losing, that's the optimal result because then they can't bench him. And the draft pick for the Eagles carries.
Yep. I mean, speaking of the Eagles, I don't know. I mean, the Thursday night game, I honestly don't know if there's too much to touch on. I mean, you can touch on if you want the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, really not a strong performance. I mean, he's been very inconsistent, but, the Bucs, kind of what you expect from the Bucs. They got the job done. They got a little close at the end, but it seemed like they were always in control.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that Tom Brady really didn't play that well, or not as well as we've used to see him play this year. I mean, he did kind of let them back in the game. They really did have a shot to win at the end. As crazy as it sounded, is up to that point, it was one of the most lopsided games I've ever been in attendance for. And then all of a sudden, they're down 6 points with like 5 minutes left. I just have to make a quick comment on this. The NFL's taunting rule is horrible. They have to get rid of it. I mean, I'm not sure if you saw it, but on the Bucs' final drive of the game, they basically had a 1-yard run. The Eagles had all the momentum, and they called a taunting call on one of the softest plays you'll ever see in your life. But that's not why the Eagles lost. You expect a team like the Buccaneers to take care of a team like the Eagles. Jalen Hurts doesn't really look like he's an NFL starting quarterback, and Nick Sirianni is certainly not an NFL coach. I mean, he gave Miles Sanders one carry and a half. And do I get that, obviously, running against this Buccaneers defense is not going to be all that successful because of guys like Vita and William Golston and obviously all the rest. and had them having the best run defense in the league? Yes, but you have to run the ball more than one time. It's almost like a cartoon stat. Not too much to say about the Buccaneers. They got the job done. That defensive backfield is a little bit of a concern. And Brady's I'm not concerned about Brady also. I think that hand injury was probably hindering him a little bit. But he's been obviously one of the best quarterbacks in football this year. He'll continue that, but I'll just say most lopsided one-score game I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, moving on to this week's prediction. We're going to start in London. Jags, Dolphins. I'm going to start here. And this one's a weird one for me because these are two bottom 5 teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I'm actually in London. I just have a feeling the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to win this game. So I'm going to pick the Jags, as bad as they are. I don't know. It's just kind of a gut feeling. I've seen some signs. I mean, that Bengals game to me was encouraging for the Jaguars. I know that was, I believe, 2 weeks ago. Last week was bad against Tennessee. But I don't know. I don't think the Dolphins really have the playmakers on offense that really can threaten the Jaguars. I mean, we saw what they did with Myles Gaskin last week. We'll see if they can replicate that maybe, see if Waddle gets involved. But I don't know. Kind of a weird feeling. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to pick up his first NFL win this week.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think the Dolphins are horrible. I think they're terrible. Jacoby Brissett, he's still starting this week, right? Tua's not coming back this early.
It might be Tua this week, I think they said. There's a chance it could be Tua.
Probably not Tua at 100%, though. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
So either Jacoby Brissett, who's not an NFL quarterback, or Tua not at 100%. We don't know if he's even an NFL level quarterback at this stage.
I don't think Tua, Tua at 100% is nothing special.
Yeah, but I think Urban Meyer is probably a little thankful to John Gruden for getting some of that pressure, some of that media attention off of his back. So yeah, I think the Jaguar. I'm going to go with the Jaguars as well to get their first win of the year, and I'm rooting for them heavy because Dolphins draft pick conveys to the Eagles no matter what. So the Eagles could potentially end up from a top 3.
Eagles are going to have a crazy draft. Yeah,
that's why they got to fire Howie Roseman. They got to fire Howie Roseman before this draft.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy to see, but unfortunately for the Eagles, this draft really does not have any top QBs. So they really, it's almost like you almost might want to trade for, back a year or something like that. But it is really crazy. I mean, these quarterbacks are bad this year. Like we've seen that kid from Liberty, I believe Malik Willis is his name. He looks probably like the best guy that's going to be in there this year. But I mean, Spencer Rattler has just imploded. That guy is he should not be. Probably he's not going to get drafted, I would say.
He's going to return to college, I think, next year. Probably transfer somewhere to rebuild his reputation. But Matt Corral from Ole Miss is the other guy that has been getting some buzz. Yeah. He didn't look great against Alabama, but then again, who looks great against Alabama besides Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson? I think he could be a pretty solid story. But like you said, not a lot of quarterback talent in this draft. The defensive backfield talent is loaded, and the Eagles sorely need an improvement at linebacker and safety. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah. All right, we got Vikings, Panthers next game. I'm going to pick the Vikings here. Panthers, CMC, it seems like he had kind of a step back this week, so he's still out. Dalvin Cook is going to be back this week, and I think the Vikings, it was the last-minute win last week, but still, this team is too good not to win this game. I think they're just the better team. Carolina's defense is all right. It's played pretty well so far, but I mean, tough loss to the Eagles. I think they're true colors. I think Sam Darnold's true colors kind of showed last week. And I think the Vikings are going to pull this one out. I just think they're the better all-around team.
I'm going to go with the Vikings just for all those same reasons you listed. Sam Darnold he's not an NFL starter. He's simply not. He's the biggest. Him and that offensive line are the biggest issue with that team. They're not going to be the Vikings. Like you just said, such a more well-rounded team than that of the Panthers.
This is going to be maybe the best game of the week. Chargers-Ravens. I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think the Chargers are just the better team. I mean, it is Baltimore at home, but I just think that Chargers, that Justin Herbert offense, I think it's just going to be too much for the Ravens. I think it could be a very high-scoring game. I think it'll be very interesting. But I don't know. I mean, one concern, as good as Lamar was last week, Colts played him close. It was a close game. So I think the Chargers will be able to win this one.
I'm going to go with the Ravens here. I think that home field advantage is going to be a big answer. I do think the Chargers are a better team. I'm going to pick the Ravens, though. I think this is going to be a very similar game to last week for the Chargers. And by the way, all these like great AFC heavyweights are just like slugging each other out. I mean, it's very rare where you see them all play each other. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ravens here. Sort of a gut feeling pick. I mean, these both of these teams I think are just absolutely excellent. Um, yeah, I'll go with the Ravens just because of that home field advantage.
This game, I mean, I don't even know if we have to talk about Rams Giants. This should be the Rams. Saquon once again is injured. We saw Kadarius Toney though. He looks like a potential very young superstar playmaker in the making. Looked very good against the Dallas Cowboys last week, but the Rams are just going to be too much for the Giants to handle.
Yeah, the Rams obviously. The Rams obviously.
Yeah, we do have bye weeks too this week. We should mention so less games will be available this week. Texans Colts. This is going to be an interesting game. Honestly, Texans had played the Pats really well last week, but I am going to give the benefit of the doubt to the Colts. They also played a very strong game this past week against Baltimore. I think the Colts are just going to be a little too much to handle. They've got a very good rushing attack. T.Y. Hilton's back. And I just think the Texans, Davis Mills, I mean, I think they kind of played some of their cards last week against the Pats. They kind of tried to go all out in that win, and it still wasn't enough. And I think the Colts are a better team than their record shows. I don't think they're an amazing team, but I think they're better than 1-4 per se. So I'm going to go Colts here.
Yeah, I'll go Colts too. I've said this for a lot of Texans games this year. It might be different if Tyrod was starting, but he's not. It's Davis Mills, and he actually played very well last week, to his credit. But like you said, I'm going to go with the Colts here. I think they're a much better team than the Texans. I think they're much better than what their record says. I hope they lose. I don't think they will. I'll go with the Colts. The Texans are just going to keep on losing their way to a top 3 or 4 pick.
Yep. I mean, this is the game of the disappointing here. Chiefs Washington. I mean, Washington defense, that has just become one of the worst units as well as the Chiefs. And I think that kind of tells the story in this one. Offensively, these two teams are not even in the same stratosphere. Terry McLaurin did not practice the other day with a hamstring issue, so it seems like he might actually not be playing after having no injury, and that coming up. Signs are not looking good for Terry. I'm going to go Chiefs here. Tyreek Hill should be on the field. He's been a little banged up. He got hurt last week with what I believe was a quad issue, but they expect him to play. And I think that offense will just be a way too much for that Washington D to handle. I think we could see some crazy games from some of their playmakers. Any of them. I think Mecole Hardman can even have a crazy game. I think that's how bad this Washington defense is.
I mean, yeah, I agree. And the Chiefs, this is a game where the Chiefs could take some of their anger out on that Washington defense, some of that frustration out. Maybe for the Chiefs to gain some confidence back against a quarterback like Taylor Heineke. We'll see, but I'm not even giving Washington a shot to win here. Patrick Mahomes is going to tear up that defense. And I don't think I can remember a unit as overrated as the Washington defense coming into the season. People were saying this could be a top 3 or 5 unit in the NFL. And I did say to you on this podcast, I had some very real concern about that defensive backfield. And those concerns are still there. It's terrible. It's one of the worst in the NFL. And of course, you have beasts like Chase Young and Montez from that line, but it doesn't matter when that defensive backfield can't even cover a receiver for more than 2 seconds. I'll go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Washington is terrible. They might even be worse than the Eagles, which is a pretty unbelievable thing to say. But yeah, and they should be 1-4 going to 1-5 right now. They got very lucky. They'll be 2-4. That organization is a total dumpster fire right now. I mean, there's some bad stuff going on over there. We know the NFL is pretty deep into an investigation over them. Dan Snyder might be in some hot water. And to be fair to the players, it might be kind of hard to focus in a situation like that. We saw that with the Raiders last week. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you said it well. And I think with the Chiefs, one thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about how bad that defense is, they've just put way too much money into this offense. We saw this offensive rebuild on the O-line this year. They give so much money to guys like Joe Tooney. They've extended all their playmakers, but obviously you have to, but it's left no money for the defense. Tyrann Mathieu might not even get an extension. He's by far their best defensive player, in my opinion. Chris Jones is great, but he's been not on the field right now. It just sucks. They put way too much money in that offense, and now it's biting them in the back for having that bad of a defense.
I do.
All right, Packers. Yeah,
I do agree with what you just said. Sorry, I just want to add one thing real quick. They're just. It's not only that. Obviously, they don't have that much money. Just so many guys who were fine last year have been awful this year. Just so much regression from that Chiefs defense, and it's really almost unheard of the level of the extent of the step they've taken back.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Packers Bears, Justin Fields. I mean, he's just looking better and better each week. He's getting way more comfortable. It seems like they're building the offense more around him. They had a good win against the Raiders last week. Still, guys like Allen Robinson really haven't been involved, which is tough to see. I am sure he's counting down the seconds till he can get out of that place. And, it sucks for him because, his contract really shouldn't be affected by his play this season because it's not his fault. But we'll see what happens with that. But I'm going to go Green Bay here. It is in Chicago, but I just don't think the Bears are ready enough. They've played better in recent weeks. I'll give them credit. The Chicago Bears, we were clowning on them, saying this might be a bottom feeder team. It doesn't look like that. It looks like they're kind of in the middle range of teams in the league right now. So I'm going to go Packers still. I think the Packers are a better team. Aaron Rodgers and that offense should be able to get the job done.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Justin Fields is 3-0 as a starter, though, right?
Yeah, I believe. No, he lost to the Cleveland Browns.
I mean,
That was
yeah, sort of much. But yeah, I mean, Justin Fields has looked pretty good since going far. I think he's probably been the best rookie quarterback so far, probably in his limited showing. I mean, maybe
Mac Jones, but
maybe Mac Jones. I mean, Mac Jones has kind of been a little bit of a turnover machine this year, though, is the only issue. As is expected of a rookie quarterback. But yeah, I'll go with the Packers. I think Justin Fields has a very bright future. They've got to fire Matt Nagy and get in a real offensive guy this offseason to work with Justin Fields. We saw what it can do for so many quarterbacks around the league. And if Justin Fields looks like this playing under Matt Nagy, that I think that's a very promising sign for Bears fans. But I'll go with the Packers here. I think they're immensely more talented than the Bears. And I think they'll move it to 5-1. But like I said, they're not on the top tier teams in the NFC for me.
Bengals, Lions. I mean, tough loss for the Lions last week. We saw Dan Campbell in tears. I mean, just so hard to watch, really. But the Cincinnati Bengals, I think it's one of the premier offenses in the league. They should have a fun time against this Lions defense. So I'm going to pick the Bengals. I mean, I think the Lions, they're going to get some wins this year. They'll come eventually. I could see them maybe pulling this one out if the Bengals, if that Detroit defense steps up. I think the Lions could be in for a nice week. That said, I'm going to pick the Bengals here. I just think the Bengals are the better team. I know I'm picking a lot of favorites and a lot of, sleepers here, but I just think there's a lot of picks that are just kind of almost locks at this point.
Yeah, I'll go with the Bengals as well here. You got to feel for the Lions, man. I mean, they could very easily be 3-2 here, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. They've got to be one of the worst late game teams I've ever seen in my entire life. It's so sad. I mean, I think they're the best winless team for 5 weeks I've ever seen. Just got to feel bad for Dan Campbell and the rest of that Lions team. But I'll go with the Bengals again here. Like you said, that offense is probably going to prove too much for Jared Goff and the Lions defense to keep up with.
Yeah. Cardinals, Browns, this game got a little more interesting in the past 24 hours. Chandler Jones is going to be out. He's got COVID, and Cliff Kingsbury and a few other coaches are also out due to COVID. Cliff Kingsbury, the play caller, they don't have an offensive coordinator, so they're really in a bind for play calling. We're going to see Vance Joseph maybe call some plays. He's coached before in the NFL, but the Cardinals are going to be a very tough spot, and I'm going to pick the Cleveland Browns. I know Cleveland is without Nick Chubb, but it is in Cleveland. I think that's a very tough place to play there. They haven't lost there this season, and I think the Cleveland Browns defense, I think they'll be able to stop Kyler Murray, and I think that Cardinals defense, I feel like they're going to be tested this week against an offense like Cleveland. Odell, I think they got to get Odell more involved. 2 catches last week. I know he had a drop that was pretty bad, but it's embarrassing. You got to get this guy involved. I think this is probably his last year regardless. I think that pairing just has not worked out. He's probably not happy. The Browns aren't really happy with him and the money they have to pay him. But I'm going to pick the Cleveland Browns. I think they'll, put up a strong showing. And I think really what's hurting the Cardinals is just all that, the coach out, Chandler Jones is out. They just are really struggling with COVID right
now. Yeah, I'll go with the Browns here, just because you said obviously not having your head coach there is not a good scenario in any such word. I think the Cardinals have a little bit of fluke about them. I don't think they're as good as their record says. I think it's going to be very tough for Kyler to sustain this level of play because the way he's playing is just he's been unbelievably good. I mean, yeah, I think they're a great team. That win against the Rams is very impressive. I think they're a little bit overrated though. Like I'm not getting on that Super Bowl contenders train for them. I do hope they win it though, because Zach Ertz just traded their Eagles legend, obviously, and it shows that they're going for it. I mean, that trade really does. I mean, if there was any doubt about it before, this Cardinals team thinks they can win the Super Bowl this year. I'm going to pick the Browns though. I think they're a better team, and I think it's going to be very tough for Arizona to go into the dog pound and pull out a victory.
This next game, I mean, they are just a very good ball club. This defense, Trevon Diggs, I mean, look, he's a bit overrated. We know that, he's, getting overhyped when you're comparing him to Deion Sanders, but what he is doing in terms of the interceptions is very impressive. He has, I believe it's 6 through 5 games now, has a pick in every game. He's been very impressive. Cowboys defense looks a lot better. Micah Parsons played pretty well. And this offense is just almost unstoppable with the two-back monster of Zeke and Pollard. You've got Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. Dallas is going to win this game, and Dallas is a serious threat in my mind to potentially make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Dallas team is outstanding. Pains me to say that.
I see it pains you to say that.
The run game is just, I mean, Zeke is back to his peak form. He might be even better than he was at his peak form right now. I think this is the best he's ever looked. And Dak Prescott he hasn't missed a beat since coming back from his injury. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. I'm not sure the Cowboys defense can sustain that level of play, and I'm not sure Trevon Diggs' level of interceptions is exactly the most sustainable thing in the world. 6 interceptions through 5 games doesn't really seem like a trend that's going to continue, but credit to him. He's been great this year. Obviously, like you said, a little bit overrated. But, yeah, I'm going to roll with the Cowboys here. That offense is just unstoppable. I don't know if I would pick them to go to the Super Bowl. I think they might be an exit in like the divisional or the NFC Championship game. That might be the Eagles fan in me talking, but I don't think the Cowboys are on the level of like a Rams or a Buccaneers, just in my opinion.
Definitely not as complete, but that offense can play with anyone. That is what I will say, and why I think they have, a shot at least, to say the least. This next game, Raiders Broncos, I'm going to go with Denver here. I mean, this is a lot of controversy this week in Las Vegas, and I think, it will take a toll on some of these guys. It's just a lot to handle, and you're going to Denver, a tough place to play as it is, with the temperature, the altitude. It's going to be difficult. I think both these teams are overhyped. Both these teams will miss the playoffs, but I think Denver will figure out a way to pull this one out.
Yeah, I agree with you on both fronts. I think this might be a really, I mean, it already is. It's a really, really bad situation for the Raiders. You got to feel for the players because essentially this just became what started out as a 3-0 promising season became a lost season overnight, basically. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. And like you said, the controversy has really just marred the season. That's what this Raiders season will be remembered for, unfortunately, rather than, promising young teams starting to break out. These guys, I saw something on TV. I think Randy Moss said it. He said, instead of focusing on the game, you're focusing on answering these questions and what your coach is doing, behind your back or whatever. And I'm not going to make any commentary on what John Gruden on the contents of the email, but all I'll say is it's very, very difficult for a team to focus in off-field scandal as big as that.
I agree. Seahawks, Steelers, Russell Wilson is going to be out. He was just placed on IR, so can't return until week 9 at the earliest. Primetime game, Geno Smith at quarterback. I'm going to take the Steelers here. I thought they had a good win last week. Juju is out, but, I don't think that's going to do too much for the Steelers. I think Najee Harris is a superstar talent. I think he's a superstar in the making. And, I just think that in terms of defense in this game with Geno Smith at QB, both these QBs are pretty bad. I just think the Steelers defense is going to get more stops than the Seahawks. And that's why I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Steelers as well. I think I would definitely be picking the Seahawks if Russell Wilson was playing, but he's not. Somehow Geno Smith might not be the worst quarterback in this game. Unbelievably. No, I'm kidding.
But, it might be. It's like not even that outrageous take.
But I'll go with the Steelers just because the Heinz Field advantage. That defense, I think the Steelers defense is, like you said, leaps and bounds above that of the Seahawks. So I'll roll with the Steelers. We're agreeing a lot this week. I have a feeling we're going to agree.
I know.
Too.
Yeah, we only have, it looks like, one difference this week so far, and that is the Jaguar. Oh no, we both picked the Jags. Yeah. Oh, Ravens Chargers is our difference.
Yeah.
This week. That probably means we're gonna have so many of these wrong, though. Is what that. Last week we did well. You had 12 correct, and I had 11 correct. That was our best week yet. No one before had gotten more than 10. So we did very well last week. Man, we should have done like a parlay together. Maybe we would all make money.
We can win some money, Griffin.
I know, but yeah, a lot of agreeing this week. That probably means we're headed for a very low total this week. But Bills Titans. I'm gonna go with the Buffalo Bills here, as I assume you are. This is arguably one of the best teams, a top three team in the NFL. The offense is just spectacular. The defense is very good as well. And the Tennessee Titans, just an underwhelming start to the season. I mean, they've had some wins here and there, but they've had some bad weeks. And Derrick Henry has been sensational as always. You wonder when this guy's gonna kind of break down and the workload will start to wear on him, but it hasn't happened yet. And one thing I will say, and the Titans defense, Ryan Tannehill definitely seems like he's kind of regressed a little bit. He has not been impressive whatsoever this year with playmakers like Julio and AJ Brown there too. I mean, it's just been non-existent, that passing offense. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I just think they're a much better team.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bills as well. I think Josh Allen is going to rip apart that Titans defense. And that Bills defense, it's going to prove very, very formidable for Ryan Tannehill. I think they're obviously going to make Ryan Tannehill beat him. And like you said, he's looked very suspect this year. There have been a lot of Adam Gase, Miami Dolphins, Ryan Tannehill moments this year. Obviously, his receivers really haven't been healthy at all. AJ Brown, despite playing last week, he really didn't look like he was healthy. So I'll give him some of the benefit of the doubt. We'll see how the Titans play. I really don't think they're very good. And I think the AFC South is probably the weakest division of football top to bottom. Yeah, I'll go with the Bills here. I think they're in another league than the Titans. Of course, that'll probably make me look stupid, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to be made stupid a lot this week. We'll revisit these picks. I mean, I already know we're going to have some BS come here and happen. But yeah, with that, I mean, that will do it for this week's episode of Outside the Arena. Once again, thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. We appreciate it a lot. If you haven't already, please drop a subscribe, like, comment on the video. Go check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well at Outside the Arena there. Go check our Instagrams out as well as the podcast Instagram, Outside the Arena Podcast. That will all be in the description. And yeah, with that, I mean, enjoy the weekend. A lot of good sports, baseball, NBA is returning soon. NHL just returned. So, sports are active right now. So enjoy it. And yeah, we'll be back next week on Outside the Arena.